Today's video, we're working on an international for a change instead of the KW. And what we're going to do is in this panel right here, I'm going to install a port for USB. And this truck here, all it's got right now, the cigarette lighter type plug here, and then it's got one right here. Yes, you can use adapters to run your equipment or electronic devices, but it's a whole lot nicer to be able to just plug into the cord into a USB port. So that's what we're going to do. The first thing you have to do when you're going to do something like this is you have to look at the dash and decide where you want it. I mean, yeah, you could put it in one of these up here, but the reason I'm picking here is because you have the two ports here for the CB radio. They're just thumb screws where you unscrew them, you put the wire in there, or if you have a bullet type plug, you just plug them in. And what I'm going to wind up doing is off of the USB port here, once I install it here, I'm just going to run the wires from this right over onto here. Now, I have bought these from Amazon in the past, and I don't have a complaint about them. I actually like them. And it comes with the port, it comes with the wires that you plug on to the piece, all that stuff. So we're gonna just do this fairly simple. Just drill a hole, find the center. I'm not going to put dead center here because somebody might want to put something else in here. So I'm going to stay fairly close to this switch, but I'm going to stay off of it enough to where it's not going to interfere with anything. So the first thing you want to do after finding out where you want to put it, you want to go ahead and get the panel off. Now, you have to be careful because sometimes this is a panel separate, sometimes it's incorporated with the whole thing. So you have to figure that all out and to be able to get into this panel. And it appears like this here is all one piece, and that this part here will probably come out by itself. So I'm going to go ahead, and I can't do it with one hand, so I'm going to go ahead and get that panel off and see what's behind here before I do any drilling, because I don't want to drill into anything other than this plastic. I don't want to drill into any kind of electronics, and you never know if there's a printed circuit board back there or not. So you want to get that off before you do any drilling. Okay, now not all trucks are exactly the same. Now, this particular truck, this International PROSTAR, you actually have to take this whole big piece here off because there's some screws back down in here. There's one here, and there's one here. There's one over here. Now, we don't have to take this all the way off. We're going to take one screw out because this panel here goes up underneath. So I'll loosen up one screw so I can lift this piece up to be able to get this off, to be able to see what's behind it. But you don't have to take all the screws out because you only want to get this panel here off. So whatever you have to take off, so you can get this off without breaking any of the plastic. And you want to be careful because the plastic will break. Older it gets, more brittle it gets, so you want to be careful. Now, this is being a 2016, this stuff was not brittle, and this big piece here, it's just held on with clips on the back here. Let me see if I can get it to stay in place. Like, there's a clip here, one up here, another one here, and this piece here, it just pops off, but you have to be careful not to break it. And then that gives you the access to the screws that holds the other pieces in. And it all depends on what you're taking off, which screws you have to take out. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera down. I'm going to get these screws out that I need to so I can get this panel off so I can see what's behind it. And that way I can go ahead and drill my hole somewhere in here. What I'm going to do is measure from here to here to find out how wide this is, and then find dead center so I can drill dead center, because this is almost as big as the panel, but you only have to drill it as big as these threads here. You don't have to drill it the size of this. So that way it'll sit in there and it'll look decent. Like I said, I'm going to stay a little bit away from that, find dead center to drill the hole. Okay, I got all those screws out. I took this piece off because unfortunately there was a screw up here and one on each end, and this piece was underneath it, so I couldn't just pull it off a little bit. I wound up taking it off. I prefer to err on the side of caution. That way there's less chance of breaking anyways. And I took the screws out of this. Now let's look and see what's behind here. Okay, we have plenty of flat space here, so wherever I decide to go here will be fine. But now I also have to think about how I'm going to tie into these wires, because these are the two wires that go to the CB or the thumb screws, whatever you want to call it, and they're good enough to run a CB radio, so they're definitely good enough to run the USB port. So what I'm more than likely going to do is I'm going to splice into these two wires. The green one, according to the thumb screws being red, is going to be the power wire, and I'm going to check this before I actually tie into them just to make sure the red is power and black is ground, which on most big trucks, tractor trailers, white is normally ground anyways, unlike cars. Cars normally it's black that's ground, but on big trucks, tractor trailers, semis, box trucks, things like that, most of the time it's white that's ground. So I have plenty of room here to go ahead and find my center from here to here. I'll mark it and find out exact center before I drill the hole, and then go ahead and test these somewhere in the middle of that and make sure that ground is white. I have discovered something that's going to make this a little easier. I'm going to be able to use ring terminals because I don't know if you can see it, but there's little nuts down in there. So what I can do is I can run my wires inside here, use ring terminals and put on there and tighten the nuts back down. That way I don't have to cut into these wires at all. They just plug right on to those posts that sticks up. So the ring terminals will not interfere, and they're far enough apart to where there won't be a problem. The other thing that I did some measuring here, and I doubt if it's going to show up on camera, but I have a mark here indicating center, and then I took the nut, the plastic nut that goes on the USB port, and I placed it to where the center mark is in the center of the ring, and it's going to be just about right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a small hole in here to start, so I'm dead center, and then I'm going to use unibits to go ahead and make the hole big enough for the USB port. And I have a whole set of unibits here, so I can go up as big as I need to get the port installed in it. And I already have the drill here and drill bits and everything, so I can't hold this and hold the camera and drill at the same time. So unfortunately I'm going to have to do all the drilling off the camera. I mean, it's fairly simple, straightforward, and with those nuts on the back of the thumb screws, that's going to make it a lot easier, and I don't have to cut any wires or anything like that. I went in the garage and got the multimeter so I can test to see if that's which is ground and which is negative or positive. I'm sorry, negative and ground usually is the same most of the time. And if you've seen my earlier videos, when I say the garage, I mean the garage here at the house, and it's appeared in other videos. So what I'm going to do is I got the red and negative leads, and I've already got it set for direct current, and as you can see it's fluctuating around. So I'm going to back up here a little bit and see if I can do this one-handed and put the probes in. Now as you can see, I have ground on the white, which is black on white, and red on green, and we're showing a positive 12.8, 12.79. Now if I flip these, it should show as a negative number instead of a positive number. Okay, now you see I have black on green and red on white, and now we're showing negative 12.79, which means I have them reversed. Now if I take them back out and put them the way I had them just a minute ago, we will get a positive number again. As you can see, black is on white and red is on green, and we're back positive. So that tells me green is definitely hot. So that way I can go ahead and tie it in the way it's supposed to be. Now if you're worried about hooking the wires up wrong on the USB port, let me see if I can get it to show. There is a plus and a minus. So you can actually, the black wire I always put on negative. I mean, you don't have to, but that's the way I just was taught to do it. And then I've always put the red on the positive. So you can't get them mixed up. And you already know which is hot on the plug that goes to the CB thumb screws. So we just make sure that we tie the red onto the red and the black onto the black. And it's going to be fairly simple. I'll just take these nuts loose and then go ahead and put the ring terminal down on there, tighten the nut back down, and it'll be good to go. And then I just put everything back together. I plug all the plugs back in, put these panels back on the reverse way I took them off. And then this here, it'll just, once it's in place, you just push it in and you're all done. You've got a USB port. It's really that simple. Alright, I appreciate you coming back and watching another video. And I'm going to put as many in as I can throughout the year. And please hit that bell button and subscribe so we can help everybody out that wants help on doing some of this stuff. I am a stickler trying to make things look neat. It just, to me, is more professional. So one of the things I did is I went ahead and all the excess I rolled up, put wire ties on it. Now one of the things you're going to want to do is you're going to want to plug this all back together. You want to make sure that the green goes to the red. And when you plug it back in, it just plugs back in and locks in like it did before. And then once you get it locked in, one of the things you want to do is make sure it's got power. What I do is go ahead, I already got the meter set for direct current, so let's find out. Yep, 12.9. So we're still good on that. So now, seeing how this one has a switch, it's already lit up, so it's ready to go. And then there's a switch here to be able to turn it on and off. And I mean, it's a real light switch. You just basically bump it and it turns on and off. Real sensitive. But there it is, USB, and a vehicle didn't have USB before. So go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell button. And that's the dash all back together. And it kind of blends right in. You open it up. There's USB, and with the cover over it, it blends in with everything else. It's centered from in the panel, top to bottom. It's wired in here. Dash cam, cell phone, iPad, tablet, whatever you need. You got USB. You got 2 amp on the bottom, 2 amp on the top, both 5 volt. Easy install.